Hey YouTube, and welcome back to another video. This one is Imperial Armour Volume 6, the Seige of Vraks Part 2. Before I go on though, I hope everybody's well in this COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak and that you're all staying safe. With that said, let's dive into the book. So this is Part 2 of the series. It's a 3-part series that Imperial Armour, or that Forge World did with their Imperial Armour series. Regrettably, it's out of print at the moment, and it first went into print in 2008. Again, the book's up to the usual high standard of Forge World. Glossy pages, quite a large number of colour plates with vehicle details about the unit that it's come from, etc. So, brief recap. The Seige of Vraks started in 813 of the 41st millennium when the Cardinal Zafan decided that he was going to take over the Vraks world. However, he was unsuccessful in doing it, and he's largely been contained in a specific area. In 821 of the 41st millennium, there was a Dark Angel strike force that landed to assist the Deathcore Krieg regiments, and they succeeded in destroying the starport and making it more difficult for reinforcements to land. And basically from there, the war has been going on for about 10 years now. In this next issue, it details what happens when the renegade forces get the assistance from further Chaos Space Marine reinforcements from the traitor legions. And what happens is a number of the legions arrive onto the planet. Now, they arrive after an attempt has been made by the Krieg regiments to try and break the deadlock around the main palace on Vraks. And essentially what happens is that they put in a massive attack, and unfortunately it then gets checked and repulsed by the renegades with the help of these traitor legionnaires. Now, as per usual, Forge World have taken a number of particular characters, and in this case they've chosen a rogue psyker to just explain. They do these little snippets on different characters within the scenario that they're painting, and again it just runs through all the equipment and augmetics and what everything does and that sort of thing. So the traitor marines have obviously arrived in system. There's been a battle in space. One of their spaceships has crash landed on Vraks, and the other marines are landing in the Chaos Dreadclaw drop pods, which, for those that know, the Dreadclaw drop pods were the precursor to the current drop pods that loyal Space Marines use, and these ones, as I understand it, were capable of more steered atmospheric flight to get to their target zone, but also they were capable of lifting off from a planet's surface as well, and returning back to the ship that they came from. Now, to just quickly go over a couple of things, I've had a look on the Forge World website, and there is a version of the Dreadclaw drop pod still available, and it's a hybrid from the current plastic drop pod kit and Forge World resin conversion parts to make a Dreadclaw drop pod. It's not the same as the ones that they had previously. It is different, but obviously the rules will still be pretty much the same. So the drop pods there. Now, I touched on something in the previous part 1 of the siege, and that was the Deathcore of Krieg riders. And there's a nice plate here detailing more about the genetically modified horses and their riders. Forge World are still producing Deathcore of Krieg figures, and you can still buy the Outriders as a unit detachment. So moving on, again we've got new armour introduced with this volume in the guise of the Malcador tank, which is it's not a frontline battle tank by any stretch of the imagination, and it would normally be used for reserve forces, etc. But because they were in large stores within the Vraks complex, the Renegades have been using them to fight off the Deathcore guardsmen. So, like I said, as per usual, we get great colour plates, and we've got a couple of the drop pods here, along with a Dreadnought. Now, Chapter 9 deals with the intervention from the traitor legionnaires, and as I said, one of their ships crash landed on the planet after it was severely damaged trying to run the blockade. But quite a number of traitor legionnaires, as well as traitor titans, survived that crash landing and have been gathering themselves up, ready to come out of the ship and start fighting. So, on this page, okay, as per most guard regiments, the Deathcore of Krieg are no exception, and they have their own commissars. Okay, and again, a nice little call out of a commissar, Deathcore commissar, on that particular page. Now, like I said, we get Traitor Titan Legion on Vraks, and as a direct result, the Imperium launches its own Legio Titans to obviously tackle them. And this is the book where the Reaver Titan was introduced. So we have a really great, almost full 2-page spread of a Reaver Titan pair advancing into battle, supporting Deathcore armour. Nice Nurgle Dreadnought there. And here we have a nice 2-page colour layout for a Legio Astorum Reaver Titan, the Warp Runners as they're known, and a figure for comparison. And obviously we still get the usual armours. We get the Baneblade variants on there. Now, in this book it also introduces tunnelling warfare, and the Deathcore of Krieg introduced engineers which were capable of tunnelling underneath the surface of Vraks in order to lay mines, very similar to how they did in World War II. And in World War One. And in World War One, some of the biggest attacks were preceded by tunnelling and mining operations where they blew the mine, destroying a large redoubt or something like that before the attack went in. The explosion of the mine hopefully rendering the enemy into chaos and confusion, which would then mean that they would be disadvantaged and less able to repel any advance by the Allied forces. So again, Death Corps engineer called out in this plate, detailing his armour and equipment. And then we get some shots of some black and white shots, you know, in the style of combat photography, showing the engineers doing their tunnel warfare and the Hades mining drill. So carrying on with the book, we then obviously we get more plates for the traitor legions, and there are quite a few different traitor legions in there. We've got the Alpha Legion here with one of their dreadnoughts, and we've got a traitor Titan, Warhound Titan. Moving on, there's a call put out by the Krieg's forces for assistance, and that assistance is given in the form of the Red Scorpions, which are a loyalist chapter, but they're very secretive, and they are actually within the 40k universe. They're known to often give assistance to the Inquisition within the 40k universe. Now, the Red Scorpions were introduced in Imperial Armour Volume 4, the Anphelion project. But this is the first time where we get to see a full strike force deployed to fight. And as before, we get a nice call out colour plate showing the Red Scorpions livery in this veteran sergeant of the 6th Tactical Squad, 6th Company. So moving on, we also get some nice colour plates showing the grey and mustardy yellow livery for the Red Scorpions on some of their vehicles that were deployed on Vraks. And that pretty much right up to there where we get some of the Renegade Chaos warband vehicles, a couple of Brass Scorpions, Chaos Defiler, plates on there. And then we come into the index with the forces of the Imperium first. Now, straight off, it covers the Death Corps Krieg engineers, and it gives you all the information that you need for a Krieg engineering squad. Now, what I like about this particular volume is that they haven't scrimped on showing you what a Krieg engineer squad would look like and its basic information in pictorial form. Furthermore, it goes on, as well as obviously showing the equipment that they used, but it then goes on to show what a Death Rider company would look like, should people be inclined to wish to collect the miniatures. And as I said, Forge World still produce these, and they're still available on the Forge World site, and that's as of March 2020. I had a quick look before doing this video, and they're still available. But we don't just get engineering squad and the riders, we get an artillery company example, a heavy artillery company example, and then we get a tank regiment tank company showing what particular vehicles, etc., they would have within the unit. And then we get a really nice colour plate of Krieg's guardsmen marching towards the front line. We also have some examples of the heavy tank companies, and we're still seeing the Macarius heavy tanks, and we get this lovely depiction of a Titan Hunter company of the 11th Tank Regiment, which is basically 3 Shadow Sword Baneblade variants, and I'm sure that if you wanted to and you were playing a game of Apocalypse, that you would be able to field this formation as a Titan hunting formation within the game, the Apocalypse game. But what I think is nice is that they also include this Warp Runners Reaver Battle Group Order of Battle, showing you all the Legion Titans that they fielded during this particular stage of the siege. It gives the names of all the Titans, and if you look, all of the banners are slightly different in some way. So with the Adeptus Titanicus having come out recently, if you wanted to, there's nothing stopping you from collecting in the smaller scale the full Legio Astorum Warp Runners Reaver battle group that was fielded on Vraks for inclusion in your games of Adeptus Titanicus. So we then go on to the Macarius version, which was released, which was the Vulcan with this book. We've then got the battlefield entry for the Reaver Titan in this, and again we've got another example of one of the Titans, Reaver Titans, from the Warp Runners. We also have the army list for the Red Scorpions. Now, granted, this book was printed in 2008. This is going to be out of date for the purposes of 8th edition of the 40k game, but it's not going to take too much to tweak it so that you have, obviously using the Space Marines Codex, have the right points values, etc., and squad makeups. But again, it goes into squad makeup, and then it also goes into, quite nicely, the order of battle for the Red Scorpions for this particular engagement in this second volume. Now, moving on, we then come into the Forces of Chaos, and Renegades and Heretics, Servants of Slaughter. It's got information on these, and obviously it then goes into a full army list as to what these are. Okay, and this includes humanoid renegades, as well as some Chaos Space Marine variants. So, for example, Khorne Berserkers are a Space Marine from the Khorne Chaos God, for the Blood God. But Renegade Ogryn Berserkers are a humanoid variant. It also lists a couple of vehicles such as the Hellblade Helltalon fighter, which is still on the Forge World website as well. And then we get a really nice call out plate for a Vraxian Renegade Enforcer. Moving on, we then get the details for the Malkador version heavy tank. Like I said, this was a second line vehicle. Sorry, it's not a heavy tank, it's a Lehman Russ equivalent. This it's an older version, an older tank that predates the Lehman Russ, and so therefore it's more of a second line vehicle for reserve troops, etc. But obviously pressed into service by the Renegades in the siege. We also have the rules for the Dreadclaw drop pod. And the rules for the Hell Talon. Now the Hell Talon and the Hellblade, from what I understand, it's just a weapons fit variation. And on the Forge World website, I think it's either a Hell Talon or a Hellblade. I can't remember which one's actually listed, but it wouldn't surprise me if you get the parts for both versions within that one kit. And we also get the rules for a Chaos Warhound Titan. Now, moving on, the scenarios in this book follow on from the scenarios in Volume 1. So we had 1 to 7 scenarios in Volume 1, and in Volume 2 we have going on starting at Scenario 8. Now the first Battle of Vraks scenario is a Battlefleet Gothic game, for those that still have that particular game. But then we go into a scenario number 9, which is essentially a 40,000, a Warhammer 40k Apocalypse game. And it gives the forces that the attacker will use and the defender will use on this particular game. Scenario 10 is a standard Warhammer 40k game. Scenario 11 is again another Battlefleet Gothic. Scenario 12 is a Warhammer 40,000 Apocalypse game. Scenario 13 is an Apocalypse game. And then Scenario 14, which is Dawn Strike, is an Aeronautica Imperialis game, with Scenario 15 being an Apocalypse game. We then go into another Aeronautica on Scenario 16, and Scenario 17, the Execution Place, is another Apocalypse game. And then finally, as we near the end of the book, we have the appendices, which is just basically the rules for flyers and other information. Now, it also has special appendix rules for things like blast templates in apocalyptic barrages, as well as a rule for super heavy vehicles. And then at the very end of the book is just the other books that were in the series at the time. So once again, Imperial Armour from Forge World have produced a fantastic book, and it is such a shame that it is out of print, but I do appreciate the logistical problems that constantly updating and reprinting the books would cause. And I do understand that in recent years they have released different books showing Xenos armour, Imperial Guard armour, Space Marine armour, Chaos Space Marine armour to help. And really a lot of these books were bought out for people to be able to field units that they had bought from Forge World in their games. So join me next time. The next book is Imperial Armour Volume 7, Seige of Vraks Part 3, where it concludes. And in that particular volume we get the Red Hunters Space Marine chapter, we get the Grey Knights, and we get the Angels of Absolution turn up on the side of the Imperium. So hopefully in a week or so you'll join me for that one. Okay, take care, bye bye.